Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Apa khabar? How are you students? I hope all of you are fine. So Alhamdulillah, after a very long break, we managed to see each other again. I hope everyone is fine and everyone is excited to carry on with our lecture insyaAllah. Ready to learn, yeah? Alright, so before we begin the remaining semesters, we are left with 9 weeks. Yeah. What I will do today is I'm going to recap what we have did for about 4 weeks when we started the semester. I guess we have been away for about 2 months, and most likely we may need some briefing to refresh what we have did in the past semesters, right? So let me go straight away to our discussion today. Yeah. So the course title Islam and Religious Pluralism. I think it is fair enough for us to uh, recap or to retrieve what religious pluralism is all about before we carry on with discussing the different interpretations and trends of pluralism or religious pluralism. Okay, so what is pluralism? Maybe most of us are familiar that people always regard pluralism as referring to plurality or many or multiplicity. So this is a basic definition that people would give or scholars would derive when they define pluralism. But what is also another important component of pluralism is the idea of diversity, which not so many people look into this avenue of definition or perspective of definition. So pluralism that we are going to deal with in this particular course very much talk about diversity, and of course diversity in the context of religious belief. Yeah. So when you talk about pluralism, you talk about manyness, you talk about multiplicity, and most importantly, you talk about uh, the different aspects of this diversity. But most importantly, when we talk about pluralism as a term, we does not simply refer to its generic meaning. Yeah, uh, we refer to pluralism as a form of philosophy. So whenever you find the term pluralism, it signifies the idea of philosophy. So it's a jargon. So it is unacceptable to think of someone talking about pluralism and combine to it another term, say for example political pluralism, cultural pluralism, and what's more, religious pluralism as something referring to a simple phenomenon of diversity. This is unacceptable because this is a jargon, and when it is a jargon, it means a lot. It has lots of um, baggages underlying it. Yeah, historical baggages, context, yeah, and also events that brought about the meaning. So pluralism is a philosophy of understanding diversity, of understanding multiplicity, of understanding coexistence. And how do we understand these differences mm, in certain given context? Okay, another interesting way of defining a term is when you come with an antonym or the opposite meaning. So we have another specific term that give the opposite meaning of pluralism in the sense that it provides certain perspective of pluralism different from different from what people think of pluralism. In this context, I'm referring to the word dualism. Why I said so? Because dualism is a form of pluralism, you see. plural refers to many, and dualism refers to dual entities. Yeah, the basic meaning, dual entities, and two is plural. Yeah, but how come dualism become an antonym, or the opposite meaning of pluralism, that you are able, by defining uh, dualism, you are able to understand what pluralism is. Yeah, because dualism, not only that it refers to the idea of duality, but it also expresses the idea of differences, and that these two differences are contradicting to each other. So you see there is an element of diversity there, and contradictions of differences, which is also one of the component in pluralism, except that pluralism deals with more than two entities, whereas dualism deal with two entities. So you're familiar with the term, day and night, natural, supernatural, creator, creation, what else, good and evil. These are a form of dualism, and by knowing this term, dualism, or by knowing this philosophy of dualism, you will be also to understand what pluralism is. Yeah. Actually, there is also another term which is monism, but I'm not so sure why it does not appear here. Maybe I missed that slide. But if you can still remember, during the first 4 weeks lecture, I have talked about this concept of monism. So you have monism, dualism, and pluralism. And of course, monism is also a form of opposite meaning. Sorry, it's an opposite meaning of pluralism, because if pluralism talks about many entities, monism talk about single entity. Yeah, and this single entity embraces everything in this world. How does this concept emerge? This concept emerged during the time of earlier philosophers, yeah, Anaximander, Anaxagoras, all these earlier philosopher, Empedocles, they were discussing about what composed of this universe. So some of them believe in the idea that the universe is composed of different entities. Some of them believe that the universe is composed of single entity, either soil, fire, or water. Things like that. So this is philosophy of monism, and later on come philosophers like Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato, who believe in atomism, that the universe is composed of different entities, not only single entity. All right. So that's the other way of defining pluralism. And actually, why I put forward all this kind of definition, to give you the flavor of this definition. It comes from a certain background. It comes from a certain background, whereas whereby this background provide the context from which this philosophy emerged. Yeah, maybe you notice I use I mentioned certain names of philosophers like Empedocles, Anaximander, Anaxagoras. These were Western philosophers, and it were the debates within that context. Yeah. So that's about it with regard to the meaning of pluralism as a philosophy. Now, what about pluralism? Yeah, sorry, religious pluralism. Religious pluralism is a very recent term. It was coined in the late 20th century. Yeah. In our next slide, we will discuss more of this, but for today, I will only explain about the meaning of religious pluralism. Okay, of course, you find many pluralists, people who support for the existence of many religions, claim that religious pluralism refers to the idea of many religions, coexistence, diversity of religions. Again, I would like to stress that this is unacceptable, because religious pluralism isn't a simple meaning or a simple term. it is a philosophy, and it is a jargon. Again, when I say it is a jargon, it is embedded with lots of interpretations and meanings and context, and you have to be able to appreciate all these baggages, so you will be able to understand the term fairly. Right? So actually, when you talk about religious pluralism, you do not really talk about the existence of these many religions, but you were focusing on the claim made by these religions. What is the claim made by this religion? Uh, So the core issue of religious pluralism is the problem of truth. Truth claim. Maybe some of you still remember these truth claims. What truth claims? For example, in Islam, we claim that Allah is the ultimate. In Christianity, she claimed that Trinity is the ultimate, and this Trinity is composed of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Yeah. In Judaism, what is the ultimate? Yahweh. In Buddhism, Nirvana. In Hinduism, is Moksha. In Sikhism, is Mukti. So on and so forth. So you see, all these religions have different claims towards the ultimate, and these different claims bother pluralists or scholar of religions from the very beginning. Why there are many claims toward the truth? And it is coined in a very famous philosophical jargon, truth claims. Okay, now actually pluralism discusses about the way to interpret and the way to handle, to address this competing truth claim. Why? Because if there are many truths, which one is the absolute truth? And in this context, the religion that was so much disturbed, or the followers of religion, I would say, more accurately speaking, that were much bothered by these different truth claims were the Christians. Yeah, it was the Christian theologians who were trying to make sense of these different claims toward the truth, and that has encouraged them to come with a philosophy to understand the different conception of the truth put forward, claimed by the religion. In the midst of understanding religious pluralism, Christian theologians, even modern theologians, have also introduced these three jargons. So you have, whenever you talk about religious pluralism, you find Christian theologians, modern scholar of religions, um, introduce these two terms together, yeah, which are religious inclusivism and religious exclusivism. So I will first of all explain religious exclusivism. What is religious exclusivism? Religious exclusivism is the complete opposite of religious pluralism. Religious exclusivism uh, acknowledge that there is only one single truth, only one absolute truth, and that truth is found in his own religion, not in other religions. Other religions are void, other religions are flawed or faulty, not the truth. The only truth is in one's own religion. This is in contradiction to religious pluralism, because religious pluralism acknowledges the many truths claimed in different religions. Yeah. Now, what about religious inclusivism? Religious inclusivism is a position which acknowledges that other religions are partially true, whereas one's own religion is the whole truth, the only truth. You get what I mean? Other religions are partially true. So maybe there are things that are true with regard to that religion, and there are also things that are not true with regard to that religion. So which one religion that has the whole truth? One's own religion, right? Your religion, for example. If you are a religious inclusivist, you say that my religion possesses the whole truth, other religions are partially truth. Now, what about religious pluralism? How does religious pluralism is different from religious inclusivism? Okay, because it seems that religious inclusivism have some overlapping ideas about other religions. So you're right. Religious inclusivism is different from religious pluralism in the sense that it acknowledges others as partially truth, whereas religious pluralism acknowledges others as equally truth. This is what makes religious pluralism controversial. Now, if they are equally true, why they have different conception, or why they make different claim to the ultimate truth? The answers, according to the pluralist, is because different religions or each religion make a reference to the absolute truth in different ways. You see, so every religions make a reference to a single, the same absolute truth in different ways or in different perspective. Therefore, you find most of the pluralists are famously known or prominently known with the tagline, many paths to the same truth, or many ways to salvation. So you have, for example, the books written by Paul F. Nitter saying that God has many names. Yeah, or John Hick written a book titled "The Rainbow of Faith," the Rainbow of Faith with S, plural faith. Yeah. Um. So yeah, that's about it. You know, these two examples. Actually, there are many also other books written um, to embrace or to project this idea of many paths to the same truth. Now, I will end this discussion today with highlighting this. Religious pluralism, as I mentioned just now, emerged from a certain background. It is actually the background of Western experience. Yeah, and when I say Western experience, I specifically refer to the dominant religion in the West, which is Christianity. So you see, a plurality, the existence of many religions have bothered the Western audience, and by mentioning Western audience here, I'm referring to the Christians, and especially Christian theologians. And no one can deny the fact that Christianity was still a dominant religion in the Western context, and because of that diversity, the Christian theologians introduced the idea of religious pluralism to help them to solve the problems arises from the diversity of religions. Why they found it so problematic to accept the idea of diversity, the fact of many truth claims, that I will discuss with you in my next lecture. So stay tuned and study smart. InsyaAllah, we'll see you again in the next lecture. Take care. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.